Welcome to Leading Beyond Limits, the podcast where we explore the extraordinary journeys and insights of remarkable leaders who have pushed the boundaries of what's possible. Your host, Angel Radcliffe, who is a digital transformation leader, author, speaker, and financial educator, will lead each episode and dive deep into the stories, strategies, and philosophies that have empowered these exceptional individuals to lead, inspire, and achieve beyond the ordinary. We're about to embark on a journey of discovery and inspiration, and together, we'll learn what it takes to lead beyond limits. So grab your cape, or at least your favorite coffee mug, because we're about to unravel the extraordinary tales of trailblazers who've turned impossible into I'm possible. Let's get started.
Thanks for tuning in. Today we have a very special guest, Lior Arussy. Lior is a global thought leader, author, and consultant who's worked with some of the biggest brands to transform their success stories. He's here to share how leaders can use their personal journeys to inspire and empower their teams. Let's get ready for an insightful conversation about turning life lessons into leadership tools. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm really excited to have you here and have this conversation. This is a topic that I absolutely love, and it's near and dear to my heart, really about being transparent with your team and being able to empower other leaders. Before we dive in, I would love for the audience to get to know who you are. You've done some amazing things, but really walk us through your path and what's gotten you to the point of being a business owner. You're an author, you're a speaker. Walk us through some of those pivotal moments in your life.
I started my career after undergrad and MBA in the startup world. I was in technology. I was involved in one startup that did very well and actually went public. The other one was equally unsuccessful and was a complete disaster. But I learned from both. From there, HP hired me and I was involved in the internet security division of HP worldwide. We're the first one to solve the security problem for online banking. So the top 120 banks in the world, first time going online banking was on our system. So that was my first introduction to the world of change management, because imagine banks for the first time allowing millions of their customers to get access to their mission critical information, a great deal of experience there. From there, I moved to another company in the technology space called NICE, which specialized customer service technology. One of our clients was the FAA. So during September 11th, all the recordings of all the airplanes conversations were on our systems. It was, I have to say, one of the traumatic experiences of my life, and we helped them through the tragedy and so on. And in 2003, I realized that I've accumulated enough information or knowledge or expertise in the area of change management and customer centricity, and ventured to start my own business. I can tell you that my original business plan fell flat on its face within the first year. All my assumptions were absolutely wrong. It could hardly scrape me from the floor. But as one good friend told me, luckily, or maybe it's not the right time, it might come back again. And I lifted myself and started again and rethought the whole process, and eventually built a business with about 150 consultants with offices in Australia, Canada, London, and New York. And we got the privilege, literally, I see that as a privilege, to work with some of the biggest brands, from Mercedes-Benz to Delta Airlines to the Metropolitan Museum of Arts and MasterCards and Walmart. And anybody who's ever sold to those big companies know how difficult it is to win accounts there and to sell to their purchasing department. But we've done so and managed to be in some of the most fascinating or sometimes painful transformations and changes that organizations needed to do in order to be future ready and to welcome the changing expectations of customers. In the process, I wrote several books. My 10th book is coming out, Dare to Author. I'm a father of 5, same wife, and a grandfather of 3.
Wow, that's really an exciting journey. And I was resonating with the business planning and starting your own business and that fall flat phase. And I had a very similar experience where I stepped away from corporate and probably didn't do things in the proper order to start the business at the right timing. It was a great idea, but definitely not the right planning. But I think those are the things that really help us become successful. And it sounds like you learn from your mistakes and you're able to move forward. And timing is always, a key as well. So I appreciate you sharing and really being transparent. Now, you're balancing a lot. And I always like to understand what drives someone that's very ambitious. What drives you?
So it's an interesting conversation because when I received offers to acquire my company, one of the acquirers looked at me and he said, "You know what? I'm having difficulty with you because you're not motivated by money. And I cannot throw more money at you and just buy your company." And I said, "You're absolutely right. I'm motivated by the change that I'm helping people." And I'll share with you a very interesting conversation that I had with a client. Actually, five different executives of the same company approached me at the end of the project, which was successful at the end. And each one of them separately asked me the question, "Lior, why didn't you fire us? We were such a difficult client." And I said to them, "I guess I just believed in you more than you believed in yourself." And then I added, and part of it is because I've been on this journey of change and transformation so many times that I can identify the milestones and I can see the signs of risk, but also the signs of opportunity. And I've also been on the other side. I've seen how beautiful it looks on the other side when you look back and say, we've done that. Yeah, I guess I believed in you more than you believed in yourself. And for me, the most fascinating thing is to see people coming to me 6 years later, 10 years later. I had a client who just came back 14 years later and said, "We need your help," or "This was a turning point in our life, and we're still using what you taught us." And ultimately, I'm trying to help people rise up to the better version of themselves. And that's the biggest kick.
And I love that. I love that you're able to have that conversation because most people avoid what we would call difficult conversations. And it sounds like one that would be in that category. Now, Lior, you've worked in corporate, you have a business, went down these different paths in life. I would really love to know if you can share with us any specific personal experience that has shaped your leadership style.
I have several of them. I'll start with the worst one. I had a boss that any time that I would do a performance review with him, he'll say, "Look, Leo, you are the hardest critic of yourself, so I don't need to say anything. Just continue to do what you do. I have nothing to add." And I hated those. For two reasons. A, if I've done something good, please tell me. And if there are some other aspirations I should go for, or maybe something I don't see, please let me know. And I'll tell you what shaped my perspective on leadership is first a gentleman that actually grounded me in understanding that at the end of the day, everything we do starts and ends with the customer. And if you do not like your customer, if you cannot engage with your customer, if you cannot add value to the customer, you have no room in business. And that understanding always grounded me in the worst times, the biggest crisis. I would go back, like, who is the customer? How are we making impact on that individual? How do we add value to that individual? How is the life of that individual is going to be changed? And I have to tell you, this is the number one lens because even when employees are cynical and I need to lift them up, I always remind them, forget the boss who hurt you, forget the company process you don't agree with. Let's go back to the customer. Do you understand the impact that you make on the customer? And when they all go back to that, they feel empowered. They feel that they're coming to it from a power of success and not from a power of failure, from the power that they do have, not from the power they don't have. So that is one critical moment. The second moment that I would say probably shaped my life and my leadership style in a meaningful way is realizing that we do not operate out of numbers, instructions, or facts. We operate out of stories and out of emotions. And I hate this statement that says it's only business, it's not personal. Well, you know what? If you want purpose in life, it's all personal. Make it personal. Connect to the emotional side. Understand your customer from the emotional side. And even if you cannot help them, you can at least give them some empathy. So when I started to look at the world not through that cliche, it's not business, it's business, it's not personal, but really through the perspective, of what is the emotional thing here? Where are they hurting? What can I do to help in that side? That also shaped my leadership in a meaningful way. And I learned to open up and say sometimes that I'm hurt too.
And that's super important to be transparent, but you mentioned empathy. And I think empathy goes along with the EQ and having that emotional intelligence and really being able to navigate certain circumstances that help build your own character and ideally like really turn you into the person that you are. And many people like fail to realize the empathy part when it comes to leadership. Something else key that you mentioned is really understanding at the end of the day, it's a business. And sometimes you can't take things too personal, but you still have to have some sort of understanding for either your client or your team or whoever it may be that's on the other end. And these talking through these experiences, I think, really helps give some sort of self reflection and help to build out the path for your future journey. And if you're going to do a course correct, or even if you're going to mentor or coach someone else, Lior, I would love to ask you, like, what do you believe makes personal stories such a powerful tool in leadership?
So I'll start with a story for you. I was in Las Vegas in one of the biggest hotels getting ready for a keynote that I was supposed to deliver on stage. And the CEO pulled me aside and said, Leo, I want to schedule with you some coaching session. I want you to teach me how to speak to people because you're just so good at it and so on and so forth. And I want you to give me tips and listen to the way I speak and give me some help. And I said, I'm going to give you the coaching right now. You're going first before me, and I'm going to change your presentation completely. And I asked him a simple question. When did you fall in love with the company you work for and why? And I said, drop your slides, drop your charts, drop everything. I want you to go out there and tell them exactly why you love this company and when was the first time you fell in love with it. They said, they don't care. I said, just trust me. You want me to coach you? I'm coaching you right now. This is one of the most important presentations you're going to make. You flew in thousands of people to this event. Do it. You could hear a pin drop. The guy came out of it dropping with tears, and he's not the person to share that. And he said to me, why did it work? I said, because people follow human beings. People don't follow charts and pie charts. And you were trying to make them follow pie charts. The power of stories is not just the context. It's the fact that I want to follow a person. I want to follow a person that maybe I can imitate, maybe I can learn from. I don't follow a pie chart. And corporate is speaking in pie charts and graphs and all these type of things. Stories is the human glue that makes your objectives their objectives. Stories is the invitation to rise up. Stories also tells other people there is a different path. It's not a one way or the highway. Stories provide so many connectors. I call them human glues that makes people say, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that person. I want to follow that human being.
Absolutely. And I think being transparent in your own journey helps you become a better storyteller. And many people are always looking for the right point, how to get started. Some people don't think that they're really great at telling stories or being a storyteller. And I always say you have to start with something that you know. And what do you know more than your own personal journey and yourself? So if you practice talking about yourself and talking about your journey and learning how to connect the dots, you'll be able to tell any story no matter what it is. And you're absolutely right. Like for people that are in the corporate space, or if you're a business owner and you're sitting in conferences all day and meetings all day, no one wants to keep looking at pie charts and Excel sheets and everything else. That's, I'm going to just say it, it's boring. It's pretty boring.
Absolutely. It is
People
absolutely
want,
boring.
people want to hear something else that's going to help them connect the dots. And personal journeys, I think, is really what is key here. Now, Leor, like when we're talking about like incorporating these different stories and personal journeys and helping to tell like your own personal story or the company story, how do you think leaders can balance being vulnerable with professionalism?
It's an excellent question, actually, because a lot of people, when they hear about the concept of storytelling, think that this is the equivalent of stripping in front of everyone and just sharing everything. That's not the point. You want to use storytelling as a tool. You don't want to use storytelling as a way to embarrass yourself. So let's start with that understanding. Storytelling is a tool. We want you to be authentic, but it doesn't mean that you need to strip everything out there. And definitely you need to build your level of confidence. In the book, in Dare to Author, I talk about different ways of telling stories because your listeners are not starting right now at the age of 7 trying to think about their stories. They are already molded in a certain way. They are in the beginning of the career, they're in the middle of their career, some of them a little bit later. And what I'm talking about in Dare to Author is the fact that we tell the same story sometimes differently. One person will focus too much on the emotion during the event. One person will focus on the lessons after the event. Some people will rush through the facts and the numbers. Other people will tell too much of the colors and the setting and the other people around. So there are different ways to tell a story, and you need to ask yourself, what is the right effective way to tell your story to your audience based on also who they are and how they listen to stories. But be aware of the fact that if five of us are going to experience the same event, we will tell the story differently because our style of processing the story is very different. So while you add your story, also be mindful of your audience and how they absorb it, and also be mindful that maybe sometimes the way you tell the story might be too cynical and not helpful, or self-deprecation that can be taken too far, and as a result of it is the opposite of inspiring. So don't try to be funny for the sake of being funny. That's not really the purpose of it. I used to tell other CEOs that I coach, I said, as a CEO of my own company, I have one little handicap, if you may. I never know if I'm funny. I never know if they are laughing because I'm the CEO or they're laughing because my joke is funny. And I resign to accept that I'll never know if I'm funny or not. So understand that your story need to be in the context of the people who are listening to it, and also understand that there are different styles of storytelling, your choice of words, the way you conclude it, the way you inspire with it. There is a structure to it that you may want to follow in order to make sure that your story will be effective. You're not just telling a story to your grandchildren. You're telling a story in order to mobilize people.
I love that. And of course, I understand this concept, but some people who are listening may be like, how exactly do I jump in or what do I do? So, someone who may be hesitant about sharing their personal journey, what advice would you give to like just picking out like one small piece of their life? Some people are very private. And so they might be hesitant in deciding which life experience is appropriate to share in a leadership context. Can you help pinpoint, like, one thing that someone that's new to this can do?
So I'm going to share a personal story that I share sometimes when I do, for example, training for salespeople. So there's a perception with salespeople that they need to be heroes, they need to close everything, and so on and so forth. And I tell about an early experience of me as a salesperson trying to close a major deal in England. And I was sitting in front of the CEO, the managing director, as they call them in England, and all his team. And he's basically telling me, Lior, we're not going to buy from you. Your company's too small. You should go to another distributor that is much smaller. I'll help you with that. But there's no way the volume that they're doing is so big, and so on and so forth. And I did my homework before I went to him. And I said to him, Peter, look, if Peter, the bureaucrat and the large managing director is sitting here, then you're absolutely right. I'll leave the room and thank you very much for your time. But really, I came to visit Peter, the entrepreneur. Remember 20 years ago, you started your business from your garage. It was small. And remember those feelings of creating something new that you've never done before and how exhilarating it is? Today, your business is so big that any new product is not making you happy or excited. So I came to speak to Peter, the entrepreneur, not Peter, the bureaucrat. And if that Peter is not here, I'll leave. And there was silence in the room. And I'm sure like everybody's like, how did this guy dare to speak to our managing director like that? And after what seemed to be eternity, he said to me, my name is Paul, not Peter. And you can only imagine the total embarrassment that I had there. I use that because I'm trying to give salespeople permission to make mistakes in order to dare to pitch differently. So when I'm choosing the stories, I'm not choosing them because they're interesting or anything else. I'm choosing them because the lesson is effective in order to give permission for people to get out of comfort zone or out of fears.
I love that, and that's what people need to get out of their comfort zone and to really overcome whatever fear that they're having. And I think throughout these last few questions that I've asked, you've hit on some great points, and I think that you've definitely told the story and hit the points of how storytelling can be used to drive change and innovation, not only like within a team, but organization whole, especially if you're having some larger conference or meeting. Just a quick question for you. Do you believe that the storytelling also enhances like team cohesion and collaboration?
Not only I believe, oftentimes when I face companies that are very stuck and you could see thousands of employees who don't believe that they can do things differently, and the company comes across as overly process oriented and so on and so forth, I will gather a group of people as champions and work with them to break the mold and start doing sprints of changes within 90 days. And it's fascinating. I'm taking people that have not worked together because each one represents a different part of the organization. I create a mini company within the large company. So one person from legal, one person from finance, and so on and so forth. So I'm creating that team that have never worked before. I'm gluing them together with a sense of purpose and a story of why we're doing what we're doing and the impact that we make on the customers. And it's fascinating to see what they're achieving. And I can tell you, usually I will start with, let's do one thing differently in the next 90 days. And they usually beat those objectives by at least 100% or more because they get energized, they work with each other. The mission together is very important to them. The fact that trailblazers are important to them. They're putting special capes and are ready to go. So yeah, the story is what glues these disparate individuals that are working for the first time together for 90 days. And it's fascinating to see what can be done.
I love it. And you've shared really great examples and tips of what to do in telling the story. If you're new to telling your story, I think one thing that we haven't focused on is really common mistakes that a leader may make when trying to share their stories with their team. So, is there anything that someone should not do?
Oh, we can go through a long list. The common mistake starts with people bragging about achievements with no purpose, just to say, "Hey, I'm a great person. I do great things. Look at me. I'm amazing." Second thing, they set a tone that this is a home run or nothing environment. So look at me. I've hit all these home runs. You can do that too. The best baseball player, 0.35 is an amazing, amazing score, amazing track record. So they practically need to lose 65% of the time. Are they losing? No, they're practicing for success. So not showing how you practice for success is a common mistake. Telling a story that is all factual. There's no color. There's no names of people. Where did it take place? That's a common mistake. How did you feel? How did you feel during? Not at the triumphant moment where you got the gold medal and you stood on the podium. Tell me how you felt at that moment. Another one that they always forget to mention is pivoting. Did you pivot in the middle? Did you have one plan and then you need to change the plan in order to get somewhere else? Pivoting is very important because it provides a permission for people to pivot. Did you break the rules? If yes, please tell us. Many of the storytellers are refusing to tell how they broke rules, but many of them did break rules. Breaking the rules and sharing them publicly give permission for employees to break the rules and do things differently. So if you refuse to show them that you broke the rules, don't expect them to do that. They'll go back to just following the rules that you wrote. And contextualizing, what was the sense of urgency? Why you decided to go and chase that specific situation or that specific achievement? Why was it important to you? What impact did you make on others? What was the risk that you were assuming? Was it a known risk or did you discover it? Sure. I can go on and on with different lists like that. And I think the other part that is probably on the conclusion side of storytelling that is missing is everybody have a different superpower. Don't try to make it all your superpower. This is not about replicating you. This is about them finding their superpower while you found your superpower to create the amazing examples that you talked about. And in Dare to Author in the book, I'm not just talking about the stories, but I'm providing a lot of prompt questions that can help people individualize and personalize their own story as opposed to trying to live somebody else's story.
Thank you so much. And Lior, I know we're nearing the end of the show. So I want to thank you for sharing such valuable insights on leadership and personal growth and storytelling. I do have one last question for you. And excuse me. For those that want to continue to use that same story example as they're moving through their career, how can one ensure that their story evolves and remains relevant to the organization?
So I'm going to use again an example. Many of us as children have experienced something that either left a scar or left an inspiration. We met a teacher or coach that either inspired us or insulted us. And at the beginning, we're probably carrying it as a scar. But as I talk in the book about the act of authoring your life story is the act of converting life experiences into future strength and resilience. So it can be that during your teen years, that story was painful, but then when you matured, that all of a sudden you discover that story is actually a springboard to something else because that scar or that pain or that inspiration motivated you to do something else. Stories evolve over time as we use them and as we live through them as a source of strength and resilience. So what you'll see is that your story will start getting different shades as it mobilizes you to do other things. And while at the beginning it was just a nucleus of the story, but then when it mobilizes you to do something else and then you've done it, you know that the origin were in the original story. So add those layers. Add the layers of what that story made you do over time.
I love it. And thank you so much again. This has been a very insightful conversation, some great tips for those that are listening that want to learn how to incorporate their stories and empower their team. So I'm so grateful for you to come on and be super transparent. And I would like to give you an opportunity to share with us like anything that you have coming. I know you mentioned a book, Dear to Author, and really share with how our listeners can get in contact with you.
So Dare to Author is full of ideas, not only about how to author your stories, but what happens when you do not. My main argument is that we often resort to victimhood and we let our imposture syndrome and other syndromes shape our story, not necessarily in a way that we want to. So what you'll find there also is a reality check that can wake us up to how our stories are being authored today when we don't take charge. You can find more at liorarussy.com. Wealth of articles, videos, all free of charge. You'll find more and more information there available to people who want to take their leadership to the next level and inspire themselves to rise up to the better version of themselves.
And any last words?
Don't listen to the cynical voice in the back of your head. They're not telling the truth.
Thank you for tuning into another inspiring episode of Leading Beyond Limits. If you enjoyed today's conversation and want to hear more from our incredible guests, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us. And if you have a remarkable leader in mind who you'd like to hear on our show or any questions and comments, feel free to reach out to us. You can find our contact information in the show notes. Remember, leadership knows no bounds, and with the right insights and determination, you too can lead beyond limits. Until next time, keep reaching for the stars and leading with purpose.